If we go through the life expectancy graph, it shows that men die sooner than women. The average life expectancy for men is 62 years compared to that of women of 65 years. In cases of communicable diseases, in cases of cancer deaths, cardiovascular diseases, injuries, intentional injuries, men are more prone to die because of these reasons compared to women. We are not even talking about combat deaths or accidents. If we talk about the suicide statistics, almost twice the number of married men commit suicide as compared to women.
But the thing I hate about them the most is that they're making it harder for us to laugh. One of the things that people will tell you when they visit places like North Korea, or people will tell you when they lived through authoritarian regimes, is that the first thing to go when a dictator takes power is humor and satire, because it's a risk.
The leftist thought is based on the premise that if there are two people in a room, one person is rich and one person is poor, the rich person must somehow have screwed the poor person. That if there's somebody with $5 and somebody with $1, the person with 5 must have done something to the person with 1. People always wonder, for example, why is it that the LGBT community is so much in support of the Muslim community in the United States when the Muslim community in the United States is supported by the Saudi government largely, and the Saudi government literally prosecutes gay people? Right? Why is there this alliance? Why is there such softness toward the Islamic world by the LGBT community? And the answer is it's an alliance of convenience.
Freedom of speech, the ability to express yourself, it's a cherished idea, as well it should be. Most of us who live in liberal Western democracies think of it as a basic human right. People have fought and died for it. But now we may be in danger of losing it. The threat is not coming from without, from external enemies, but from within. A generation is being raised not to believe in freedom of speech, but rather that they should have freedom from speech they dislike. This is a threat to both pluralism and democracy itself. We see this in Europe, where sensitivity-based censorship attempts to ban anything deemed hateful or even just hurtful, and to ban criticism of religion, especially Islam. But the United States, despite its strong constitutional protections in the Bill of Rights, is far from immune from the rising trend of suppression of speech, or what is sometimes called political correctness. This is especially true at America's colleges and universities, the place where our future leaders are educated and where you'd expect speech to be the most free. Highly restrictive speech codes are now the norm on campus, not the exception. According to a study by my organization, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, 54% of public universities and 59% of private universities impose politically correct speech codes on their students. At a public campus in California on Constitution Day in 2013, a student who also happens to be a decorated military veteran was told he could not hand out copies of the Constitution to his fellow students. The objection from the university was not ideological. It was out of control bureaucracy imposing limits on speech.
People who identify themselves as white British people are now a minority in their capital city of London. We cannot expect that this will not have political consequences, and we cannot expect that people across Europe aren't going to feel something about that. Legal and illegal immigration, for instance, are totally separate things. The law is on one side and not on the other. Economic migration is one very distinct thing and very separate, for instance, from asylum. It is my belief that Europe should remain open to asylum seekers, that people who are genuinely fleeing persecution in other places should be able to find a sanctuary in Europe.
We live under governments that relentlessly interfere in family life, in home life, in private life, governments which think nothing of telling parents how to raise their kids, or telling adults how to have sex, or setting out to reshape our behavior and even our minds. We live under a state, in other words, that thinks individuals should have no internal moral life of their own.
By denying us the ability to think, political correctness is a heresy if we're truly committed to liberalism. political correctness, after all, aims to tell us what to think. And it seeps into so many parts of society, so often without us even paying attention to its aim. Because the purveyors of political correctness are not imbeciles, because they are smart people armed with clever tricks, we do need to pay more attention. In the last few weeks, some on the left have claimed that those who have raised questions about multiculturalism, immigration, and the relationship between Islam and modernity have blood on our hands. Surely they're having us on, right? But of course we know they're not having us on, and these are not imbeciles who really mean it either. These are very smart people who really mean it. Smart because the PC virus has infected so much of what we do, how we live, what we read, and how we think. And I think it's the thinking part that should trouble us the most.
We are discouraged from using our mental and moral muscles. Instead, officials think on our behalf, moralise on our behalf, exercise willpower on our behalf, and basically reduce us to the level of what Mill referred to as apes, imitating the instructions of others rather than carving out our own moral path and taking responsibility for our lives. And the end result is emasculated citizens, divided families, tense communities, and less freedom.
We now live in an age when feelings are treated as a measurement of moral values, so that you measure your feelings against the feelings of others to determine morality. Hence, we live in what author Monica Ali calls the marketplace of outrage, where groups vie for victimhood status, each claiming that their feelings have been hurt more than others. Secondly, we've seen this focus on vulnerability is used as justification enough to curb Enlightenment values, such as freedom of expression. And as a member of a minority, you need only utter the word phobia to close down debate. And the principles are clear enough. I've said it many times. Free speech is not, as Mark Stein said, a left-right thing. It's a free-unfree thing. You don't get to cry in favour of free speech just to defend those with whom you agree. And free speech must, as Jim said, include the right to offend. Because if we prosecute offensive opinions, we just encourage ever more ridiculous claims to victimhood and protection. We fuel that marketplace of outrage, and we end up shutting down the true genius of Western civilization, the contest of ideas.